What's up guys, it's Dieter, your favorite clinically insane Terraria YouTuber, and today I'm back at you with another video where I'm going to be ranking every major Terraria weapon rework in 1.4.4. Now before I get started, I just want to say this is every major weapon rework, so I know there is some stat differences or very minimal changes, but these are just going to be like major weapon changes that are very noticeable. Another thing before I get into this is just my opinion, meaning you should take it as fact and there is no other correct opinion on this tier list. If you want to argue some of the rankings below, you sure can. I'll probably make fun of you in the comments. But with that out the way, let's get right into it. Now the first one we have the Blade of Grass. I think this is a pretty cool weapon change. Instead of just being like a normal sword, it has like two spiraling razor leaves that appear when you're using it. And they don't do a ton of damage, but they're useful nonetheless, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. Next up we got the Dark Lance, which is a bit nicer of an upgrade than the Blade of Grass. It now has a little bit of a shockwave at the end of the spear, which gives it a bit more range. Which more range for spears is always nice, as well as actually benefiting from melee speed boosts. So overall I think this is a great change, and I'm going to put it in the B tier. Now the next two we got are the flamethrowers. I'm just going to put them in the same tier because they both pretty much had the very same change. But these weapon reworks made these weapons much more viable. The flame's area effect has been increased drastically, as well as getting a new animation for it, which looks absolutely epic and it exudes so much more swag. And overall, I'm very glad they did this because I always wanted to use the flamethrower a bit more, but I never found myself using it as much in my ranged playthroughs. But now I definitely have more of a reason to use them, so I'm going to put these both in the A tier. Now Excalibur had a bit of a minimal rework, but I think it was very nice because not only did it have a bit wider of a energy blade, giving it a little bit more range than previously, but it also allows you to hit behind your character, which is always a nice bonus. Again, I don't think this was anything major, but I do think it was a nice change, so I'm going to put it along with the Dark Lance in B tier. Alright, well next we have the Fiery Greatsword, which has now been renamed actually to Volcano, so that's pretty cool. But other than the name, it has also had a new weapon rework. Now when you strike an enemy, it lets off a bit of a fiery explosion, giving you a nice area of effect for damage, and it's overall just another minimalistic rework that is just very nice that they added, but nothing too crazy, so it's going to go right next to the Blade of Grass. Now the Light Disc I will be putting in D tier. It hasn't really changed too much, but instead of firing 5 discs, you can now throw 6, and instead of needing to stack up to 5, it only is a singular item, so you don't have to go craft 4 more light discs than you usually would need to, which is definitely more beneficial, but it's not that big of a weapon rework. It doesn't do anything super differently. It's just a very nice change, but that's the only reason I'm putting in D tier, just because it's not really a big weapon change. Alright, now we're on the Light's Bane, which this has definitely got a bit of a cooler rework than the Volcano and the Blade of Grass. Now this weapon rework makes it so every time it's swung, it kind of causes a bit of a diagonal slash of like darkness, which is definitely a nice weapon rework, especially for how short of a range the Light's Bane was. I used to not find it as useful as some of the other weapons you were able to get at the same stage of the game, but now it is definitely more viable early pre-hard mode if you're able to get it, so I'm going to put that in the B tier. And the Maramasa to me didn't have a huge weapon rework. It added a little bit of like a slashing cut upon striking an enemy, but it wasn't really anything major, and I think it's just like a little bit more nice, but it's not anything like too crazy, so I'm also going to put this one in the D tier, but that doesn't mean it's bad in any way. I do think it's nice that they reworked it still. And next we got the Knight's Edge, and this one is going to be our first S tier. The Knight's Edge I honestly didn't find super useful. It was okay at the end of pre-hard mode, but once you got to hard mode, there was a lot better options you could go for, and it just became kind of obsolete compared to the other options. But with this weapon rework, it now has a large damaging weapon radius that makes it very effective against not only multiple targets, but now just overall any targets, because it has much more range than it previously had, so I think that definitely deserves being our first S rank. Next we got the Terra Blade, which I definitely think is one of the most notable reworks that everyone can definitely recognize. Now instead of having a little smaller projectile, it now fires a big circular energy blade that can travel very fast and also penetrate a lot more enemies. So not only is it a lot more effective at close range, because now it has a larger radius for the general blade, but it is also very useful in ranged combat. So that's going to definitely go amongst the Knight's Edge in the S tier. Alright, now we're on to one of my personal favorite weapon reworks, because this is also one of my personal favorite weapons that I always wanted to be a bit better than usually was, and that's going to be the Horseman's Blade. Now this weapon rework gives it a lot more of a radius with a damaging energy around the blade when you swing it, much like a couple of the other swords on this list. But another great thing about this is they increased the stats for the weapon drastically, making it even more viable than it already is now due to this weapon rework. So for that, I'm also going to be putting it in the S tier. Now we have the final two, the True Excalibur and True Knight's Edge. Now, I didn't originally use the True Knight's Edge that much. I didn't think its damage really compensated for its slow speed and its small projectile. But with this weapon rework, it now fires a full circular energy that can travel a lot farther, and it is a lot larger than its previous projectile, along with a large damaging energy around the blade when it's normally swung. To me, that makes it worthy going in the A tier. And I believe the True Excalibur also goes in the A tier along with it. Now the True Excalibur also has a really nice weapon rework. It's fairly similar to the Excalibur rework, but it actually has much more of a larger range, making it feel like a lot more of a true melee weapon, but still very, very effective at close range and medium range combat. I still don't think it's as good as the True Knight's Edge. I think the True Knight's Edge is a little bit better, but I still think it's a very nice rework, and I'm glad they did it. Anyways guys, that's my sugar-free tier list. As I stated before, this is just my opinion, meaning it's factual, and there's no disputing it. If you want to argue in the comments that you have a better tier list, I'll just laugh at you, but you are free to do so anyways. Well, that wraps it up for this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and have an epic day, gamers.